what's happening during puberty for an adolescent is all of the emotion centers of the brain are getting quote unquote upgraded, uh, because teenage brains are not adult brains. They are not using the same technology. They are using different operating systems.
Welcome to Cycle Wisdom Chats, where we dive into the world of fertility awareness, hormonal health, and our womb's wisdom. I'm Mary Aline, your certified fertility awareness educator, and in this episode, I'm super excited because I'll be interviewing Kate Douglas, a fellow fertility awareness educator who's based in Brooklyn, New York, and London. She is passionate about body literacy through all stages of life. So, welcome, Kate. Thank you so much for joining me today.
So happy to be here.
So, I'd love for you to share a little bit about what inspired you to focus on teen hormonal health.
I was so staggered by the basic anatomy and physiology information that Sarah provided that I did not learn in my sex education class. And I was kind of horrified and kind of a little bit ashamed and sort of felt like I wish I had had access to this earlier. I felt like something enormous had been kept to me that what do you mean I can't get pregnant 365 days a year? What do I just sort of had no idea. It's basically the sex ed that I wish I had access to. It's sort of accessing cycle charting wisdom and techniques. I think it's just so empowering, and to have that bodily autonomy and informed decision-making capability from a younger age, I think this is amazing, not just for teens, but also for caregivers and parents to be in dialogue.
I am doing this work for my 15-year-old self
Oh,
who,
yes. Oh,
who
it's
knew nothing, like
yes.
nothing. Let's talk about body talk.
Let's talk about
So,
body talk.
yeah, tell us a little bit about body talk and how it supports teens and caregivers.
Well, so a little context, basically, in shaping this offering, I surveyed some parents and caregivers in my community, and I found that many of them were, to this point, not familiar with cycle charting or tracking at all, and two, were not comfortable in dialogue with about reproductive and menstrual health. So that just sort of was a bit out of their comfort zone. I've ended up with this PDF guide to conversations with teens about puberty and cycle health for parents and caregivers of cycling teens. And it includes the physiology of puberty, including physical changes that happen during puberty. It also includes journal prompts for parents and caregivers about their own experience with puberty and how that might be affecting
Super
what's happening with
important.
their teen. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it also offer some more journal prompts to help parents and caregivers shape a plan to talk to teens about. And it also includes information on when you might want to seek additional support from a healthcare provider as well.
Amazing. So body talk is really geared towards caregivers and parents and how to support their teen or preteen through the early stage of puberty.
Yes, exactly.
Great.
It's for them.
Well, body talk will certainly be linked in the description below. So if you know a caregiver or parent, if you are a caregiver or parent of a teen going through puberty, please check that out. It's an amazing resource, free resource. My question is around like how puberty begins and what caregivers and parents should know about this transition.
Totally. So first, to define puberty, because it's in its narrow biological form, puberty is the path from to sexual maturity, basically. Reproductive organs kind of come online and they mature to make sperm and eggs. But more broadly speaking, puberty includes everything that's impacted by sex hormones and that are in charge of that maturation equation. So that's estrogen, testosterone, LH, FSH, and the other parts of the body that are creating these hormones and brain development. So it's a huge sort of I guess, a full body experience, let's say. And the start of puberty is metabolically gated. It demands a lot of energy to bring these reproductive organs online, and it only occurs when we have sufficient fuel stores available. And so that initiation point of this multi-system chain reaction is highly correlated with a preteen's body fat percentage, which kind of blew
Okay.
my mind when I learned that.
Yeah.
Once they reach this certain body fat percentage threshold through a hormonal chain reaction, the hypothalamus in our brain releases this hormone called GnRH into the bloodstream, and this kind of kicks off this reproductive axis and allows the physical changes of puberty to begin. And I'd say the important thing to know for parents and caregivers who didn't ask for that anatomy physiology lesson that I just offered is that puberty does not happen overnight. It's a gradual process. It can start as early as 8, it can, or as late as age 14, depending on the individual. And generally speaking, puberty follows a pattern of onset, but every individual is different. And also, we're saying that it's not a, hormonally speaking, at least, it's not a straightforward escalation. It's not an even keel slope. It's can be a bit of a roller coaster in terms of hormones and also brain development, which is one of the hallmarks of puberty.
Let's talk about the emotional and physiological changes that happen in the brain during puberty. So, how does puberty interplay with behavior and mood?
These changes, these actually mood changes, are largely due to this remodeling of the brain that's taking place.
Amazing.
And understanding this remodeling can actually help us approach and understand these adolescent years in a big way. Uh, what's happening during puberty for an adolescent is all of the emotion centers of the brain are getting quote unquote upgraded, uh, because teenage brains are not adult brains. They are not using the same technology. They are using different operating systems, basically. Uh, so there's, for instance, there's the amygdala, which controls our fight and flight response, and it's responsive to hormones. And that's the part of the brain that kind of initiates going out there, doing something spontaneously. It's moving you away from the family unit. And during puberty,
Mm,
the amygdala is kind of pushing young adults out of the home, kind of encouraging this
mm,
individuation uh, and also maybe these leaving the home isn't as threatening to preteens anymore because of this need to be increasingly autonomous. So the amygdala, right, has a lot of influence because the frontal cortex isn't finished developing yet, and that's not going to be
mm.
done until your mid 20s, right? You're 24, 25. So that's like the brakes basically. So if the amygdala is the gas saying like let's go get them, the frontal cortex is like I actually should maybe let's consider that. Let's think about the hows and the pragmatics and how to it's the area of second thought basically, which I really like.
Yeah.
And the teenage brain can't really toggle as well between the more impulsive amygdala decisions and the prefrontal decision making very well. And there's another part of the brain which I learned about actually in prepping Body Talk, which is called the ventral striatum. And that is receiving input from the limbic system and from the cerebral cortex, which are all still developing. And this has to do with pleasure and rewards and dopamine. So basically,
Mm,
you've got the amygdala, which is like the gas, and then you've got the prefrontal cortex trying to pump the brakes. And then you've got this ventral striatum saying, like, take me somewhere new. Like, I want to go somewhere exciting.
mm,
So this
mhm.
may be activated by gaming and online excitement and lots of texting because you want the dopamine buzz. And they're just wired differently. The teenage brain is wired differently than an adult.
I love the way that you're talking about this because I feel like it puts things in this different perspective, and I just wonder how this would land for parents and caregivers to really grasp that the brain of their teen is, I love this, like, being upgraded, and how relieving that learning about puberty from this lens of also brain development, how much more compassion that we might have for our teens. And I feel like that could really have a deep impact on the relationship that our caregivers and parents are having with their teens.
100%. Dan Siegel actually has an amazing book called Brainstorm on this very thing. So if you really want to dive into what is happening in the adolescent brain and other tools to kind of recontextualize it and sort of maybe approach this from a different way as a parent or caregiver. He's got some amazing offerings in that field.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure to link that in the description below too, in case anybody wants to check out that resource. So, in Body Talk, you mentioned the concept of potted plant parenting. That is a beautiful alliteration that it's hard to say. Can you explain what this means and how it can help caregivers sort of navigate this stage of development?
Yeah, so this is a concept from psychologist Lisa Damore, and she wrote a little bit about it in a piece in the New York Times, which is it's a great little article, and she discusses potted plant parenting is basically being a stable and largely silent present in your teen's life. So she calls it detached availability. Right. And you can see how this
Okay.
makes sense in terms of the brain development, right? So you've got this, you want to individuate, you want the novelty, but you're not fully there yet. So it sort of
Mhm.
makes sense to have uh, a present parent or caregiver, like the opposite of helicopter parenting, basically letting your teen have the support and space to create their own sense of identity and independence, but you're still there, kind of like a potted plant on the windowsill, witnessing on call, maybe, ready to take action
Mhm.
if needed. I
'Cause
I think that's why this working with parents and caregivers is so fascinating to me because I really do believe that you bring so much of your experience of puberty and attachment to this threshold that your teen is going through. So it's kind of how parents and when parents and caregivers are approaching this for their teen, it's layered. It's not just
yeah.
what's happening in the present tense. It also can be what's happening to them when they were going through puberty. It's a lot.
There's a lot happening at this time and a lot happening for the teen, a lot happening for the caregiver or parent. They're like having to navigate certain conversations with their teen for the first time, and maybe they're having to rewrite some of their own stories about what sort of advice and support that their parents gave them when they were
Mhm.
teens. What would be your most important piece of advice that you would give a parent or a caregiver of a teen that's either approaching puberty or actually like in the thick of it?
I would say having some compassion for yourself as you navigate this puberty timetable as well, just because a growing brain and body, I mean, obviously your teen is going through something so seismic, brain fully getting remodeled, but it is
Yeah.
affecting everyone in their social network as well. There's some experimentation, there's some like testing of limits and boundaries. So I think if you can find community and find compassion for yourself, that's really invaluable. And I would also say getting access to accurate information about cycles and menstrual health and body literacy is so supportive and can be supportive for you and like your inner teen, as we've been
Mm.
speaking about, as well
Mhm.
as then you'll be able to impart correct, accurate information to your teen as they're going through this change. So that's what I would say. Community and accurate information.
I feel like you're coming at this from a reproductive health lens, which can be so important to consider in terms of what sort of accurate information are we giving to our teens, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do we want them to relate to their bodies, to their cycles, and to not
Hmm.
also be so hard on yourself of like needing to know all the answers, like
Right.
having a community that you can, ask an auntie for some support, to have these conversations that maybe don't align with your relationship with your teen right now, but having other people that you can point to support your teen as they go through this upgrade. And if you are finding value from this video podcast with Kate, please consider liking, commenting, or sharing this with other parents and friends and caregivers. What signs should a caregiver or a parent look for to know whether or not their teen's development is on track? So essentially, when should they be concerned?
This is a complicated question, basically, because what is normal is so complicated and unique to every
Mhm.
individual. I would say just in terms of, cycling teens, in terms of development, some things that may require deeper investigation is if the period is coming more frequently than every 21 days or less frequently than every 45 days. And or if this bleeding is for more than 7 days, that's fresh flowing red blood for more than 7 days, not spotting. If the first period has not arrived by age 15, uh, and soaking a pad tampon every 1 to 2 hours during the bleed. This is a non-exhaustive list by far, but I'd also note that in terms of mood swings, as we've talked about during this
Mhm.
remodeling phase, hormonal mood swings tend to happen on the order of hours. So, but whereas other kind of mood swings associated with depression often happen on the order of weeks. So hormonal
Okay.
mood swings tend to have a kind of on-offness to them. Again, this is not scientific, but it tends to be quicker basically when it's hormonal. But if your teen seems to be down for days or weeks, or doesn't want to hang out with friends, or loses interest in activities that they used to really enjoy, it might be time to dig a bit deeper. Friendship space, that's another big indicator is our teens losing meaningful connections and not gaining new ones. And I will say, yes, early intervention in all this can make a difference. So trust your instincts as a
Mhm.
parent caregiver. If something feels off, it's worth exploring further.
Mhm.
And in terms of how to do this without overstepping, I think even if you don't know exactly what to say, I think keeping the channels of communication open is, I think, is key. And when I say communication, I think sometimes that's not just words, that can be nonverbal support. It's sort of in the potted plant parenting style that we were talking about. And every parent and caregiver is going to have a different approach and
Totally.
yeah, spectrum of comfort in that realm.
Allowing the teen to initiate and like what that looks like and how can you foster environments to support that. Do you have any thoughts about meaningful ways that families could maybe mark this
Yeah.
initiation?
I would say yes if your teen is receptive, and I think you know your teen best because I was thinking about it. I don't think I would. If someone tried to throw a party for me after my first period when I was, I would have ducked under a table and hit it. Like that would be a nightmare for me. But I think I would have liked a kind of maybe quiet gift or an acknowledgement that this
Mhm.
was normal and significant. Maybe hearing some stories, passed
Mhm.
down, an acknowledgement that basically this is coming into a rhythm that's going to be with me for years to come. So I think there are a lot of options basically, and that's could be dependent on your teen's wishes and personality. So that could be as big as a moon circle or a party. It could be something more personal, a one-on-one conversation or a telling of a story, or it could
Mhm.
be a gift, like a
Mhm.
journal. It could be a piece of jewelry, or it could be a first period kit. It could be, supplies. It could be hot water bottle and, cotton pads or there's a whole range of creative possibilities, but I think it is an important rite of passage, I would say. So to have it honored can have a big impact, I think, on young people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I think about this a lot. I think about this a lot. And for me personally, reflecting back on that time of my life, I was later when I was 15 when I had my first period. So I knew what was happening and I was excited because all my friends had their period and I didn't. And me being a Leo, I think I would have loved for my mom to just maybe take me out of school for a day, like just have a special day
That
and
sounds
like
nice. Spa day. Oh my God,
spa
yes.
day or like
Yeah.
shopping or like a meal, but like I'm also a little bit of a rebel, so I'd like think
Yes.
skipping school would have been,
Love.
like a little treat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love all those ideas and I think yeah, just coming back to what's going to be most supportive for the teen and and caregivers and parents may not know that and so I think that asking
Hmm.
asking and giving some options too of ways that we can celebrate. this time or just recognize this time as a shift in our bodies.
Yeah, definitely.
How can cycle tracking benefit teens, and what sort of practical steps can parents take to support their teens in starting this practice?
Cycle tracking can tell your teen when their period is going to come. Basically, charting removes the guesswork and it lets your teen plan ahead. So that's bringing the right supplies to school, that's knowing what to pack on vacation, pretty basic. Uh, it also allows your teen to track cyclical symptoms. So if your teen's getting headaches or acne, they can note this on their chart. And noting when symptoms appear in your cycle can sort of be clues into what kind of tending and support that they might need. It can also give your teen a bit of context around something like PMS. And in this time when
Mm.
so much is changing in teens' lives and bodies, it can be really, I think, empowering to kind of focus in on this. Similarly, it can help your teen track the impact of diet or allergies or inflammation and how different supplements might be affecting them. These also apply to adults, just in case you as a parent or caregiver are listening in and are curious for yourself. Identifying vaginal infections, are quite common, even if, even without sexual activity. By charting your cycle every day, your teen will understand the difference between healthy secretions and symptoms of a vaginal infection. It can also empower your teen for their first OBGYN visit. I mean, I just think that's one of the gifts of charting is that you become a real partner in your healthcare. I think for teens especially, I think it's important to work with an instructor who can help build out a bespoke plan for you and your teen.
Do you have any teen charts available for download?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. Oh my
cool.
gosh, yes, good. I'll add that to the
Okay.
website today so that
Ah,
I'll have those up.
awesome. Awesome. We'll include that in the description below.
There's a 2019 study where they found that at higher progesterone levels, appearance, popularity, belief, and sort of weight-related teasing were more strongly correlated with body image concerns. So basically,
Whoa.
yeah, so for teens, it's like in the latter parts of their cycles, they may be more sensitive to social pressures and body image concerns. And I just found that so that's
Fascinating.
yeah, it's so
Yeah,
fascinating and so what a great bit of context. So imagine being a teen or a parent and having that little bit of a lens. So to understand that if you're consuming media in the latter part of your cycle, you might be a bit more sensitive to
sensitive to it.
certain
Mhm.
words or language or images.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Kate. How can people get in contact with you? Yeah, tell us all the ways.
Uh, there's my website. It's all platforms. It's Hello Earth Body, and I have a special little area of my website for cycle charting. And if you have any questions about teens please reach out directly. There's forms on the website, and check out all the free resources I have. I've got a whole little like teen cycle health hub where things are living. So check it out and reach out.
Perfect. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you,
here.
Mary.
So appreciate you, and thanks for listening.